Well,
their attorney sucked. Sorry.
Their attorneys are good. They just have bad clients. That's what I think about it. I mean, if you look at the attorneys they had working for them, trust me, those are some darn good attorneys.
But they lost, man.
They did. A lot of good attorneys.
They lost from this attorney that I'm sorry, but this whole lawsuit, we're going backwards. I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong. I'm okay. I'll implement the change, but it's backwards.
I'm gonna defend my people.
If the listing agent not offering commission to the buyer agent, it doesn't matter. Your offer is not going to look as strong as the other guy that's
waiving all the commission.
And, waiving everything, waiving commission. I'm just saying. Let's say the other buyer agent has a buyer that's going to pay them, and then our buyer, poor guy, they only has $7,000 in his bank, and that's his whole down payment. He's going to do like some Illinois program.
No, you're right, Greg. I'm not disputing what you're saying, because there will be unscrupulous companies out there that are going to use the fact that they have to have a buyer-broker agreement signed to get someone locked into 6 months before they know that they want to lock into 6 months with a particular agent. Or it'll be with an agent and then they get sent out with one of their minions that they don't like.
Yeah.
Right. And, there's any number of ways that could go wrong for the consumer. And if that is what the prevailing solution to this problem is, then boy, did this consumer-oriented litigation go horribly wrong, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Hello, everybody. Episode 27, and we got two special guests today. We got Justin from Neighborhood Loans. We've got a birthday coming up on the 27th.
There you go, man, 27.
Patrick Loftus from Loftus Law.
Almost.
The counsel.
Loftus.
Sorry.
Frank.
Loftus.
We're starting wrong, man.
Should we redo it?
Loftus.
Loftus. Sorry.
The mistakes are what make people get engaged.
That's
you
right.
Make a small mistake and say, "Well, actually, thank you for the engagement."
Well, there's someone I know with your last name, and I've been probably calling them the wrong name their whole life, and they just haven't corrected me. So.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
I'm terrible with names too, so it happens.
I call one of my agents still wrong name.
Oh yeah, I'm like, dude, he was here. I'm like, dude,
it's
not even spelled how you're saying it. Anyway, so why don't we start with you, Justin? Tell us your story with Neighborhood. How'd you get started?
For sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Very much so. Looking forward to kind of going over everything and give you guys a little background on me. Okay, I am a loan officer with Neighborhood Loans. Been doing it for the last 5 years. Been a great journey. Been crazy. A lot of ups and downs. And I attribute a vast majority of my success to my mentor, my uncle, who got me into business 5 years ago. He's taught me everything I know.
He's a cool guy.
Great guy. And, he really got me into the business. He put me on the operation side of the business. And from there, we took it off. Social media was the main thing that really excelled my business over the last couple of years. So,
and you have your own podcast, right?
Yeah, got my own podcast.
Could say, check them out.
Post on social media every day. Cafecito Talks, you want? Go ahead and check it out. So.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer, Loftus Law. So I'm the guy you hire when you're buying and selling your home, and I help make things go smoothly. That's right. I also have a podcast.
There you go. Nice.
Love it.
That's the thing, right? So we call ours the Home Buyers Hour. It's me, Charlie Bellefontaine. He's a building inspector.
Yep.
Joey Matthews, the VA loan nerd, and we have guests on, a real estate broker every week, and both Greg and Frank have been guests on our podcast. So I figured I would return the favor.
Thank you.
So here I am. And so any law questions you have, if I can't answer them, then we'll just edit that out and ask me something.
No, you're good. But the main thing, besides, of course, I know you're from the podcast and everything, and with Charlie, but man, online, I've been seeing you like every day.
Yeah, it would
in a good way.
Well, yeah. So I started posting a lot about the NAR lawsuit and the settlement, and people really responded. People really care about this thing, and so I really took the time to take a deep dive into what is actually in this thing.
Right.
Then we talked a little bit about what the plaintiffs' lawyers are making, which is something interesting to many people. So I'm going to continue to track it and keep up with things. I know coming up this month is approval of the settlement, which the one thing that could really throw things off is if the Department of Justice decides to intervene, which they very well may do.
Yeah, but why would they, because you know all about it, I'm going to ask you direct questions, because you read the whole thing?
Yes,
Right?
every painful detail. Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, this guy
How many pages is it?
Crazy.
You should in my phone. I've got all like the highlighted stuff. And,
Wow.
You saw like I green screened it with little pages
did.
from the
pretty awesome.
from the lawsuit. Or from the settlement rather. And yeah, I mean, look.
Yeah.
It's this information is available out there, but a lot of people don't know where to access it or really how to interpret it. And I have that expertise. Having, I handle real estate transactions. That's my primary practice area today. But as a younger lawyer, I handle a lot of litigation. So I do have some insights as far as like the ins and outs of what really might be going on behind the scenes.
Talking about going back to DOJ, if they intervene, say like, hey, seller, you cannot pay the buyer agent at all. Zero.
That is what the DOJ imagines is the perfect world for them, where you're completely splitting the buyer commission and the seller commission. But
isn't that like a little bit like being more like what are you, a dictator? You're gonna say like, what about I'm selling my house? I could pay anybody I want.
It's a good point, and honestly. Part of the issue, in my opinion, is that a lot of what's happening right now with these, both with the settlement and with the DOJ intervention, is that it is with the backdrop of today's market where it's very tilted toward the seller. And so the notion that the seller is going to pay the buyer broker to bring them a buyer is sort of, it hurts people's heads a little bit because they go, aren't there buyers everywhere? Like, I could just go to the corner and find a buyer. You can't, okay? You can't. That's not how it works at all. But I remember, I've been doing this since 2004. So I saw the rise, I saw the crash and how bad it got, okay? I'm not predicting it will ever get back anywhere near what it was in 2007, 2008. I don't think that it could. I think they have the guardrails in place to prevent something like that. But we will get to a place where it is a market more tilted toward the buyer. And if you're going to prevent a seller from offering as perhaps an inducement to bring a buyer the notion that you're going to share some of the listing agent commission, you're putting sellers at a disadvantage at that point. So, the pendulum's going to swing, and I think there needs to be a more holistic approach.
Because if you think about it, if it's a buyer market, this is not even a problem. Because then sellers are all going to offer something. And then even if there is a law that it can pay directly, then Justin here, the lender, could work it out as a credit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be worked out in the next couple of months. Obviously, as we know where the market transpires after all things are confirmed and change, I do think, obviously, we saw Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac change their guidelines, right? So
tell us a little bit about that.
So pretty much what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are doing is any credit that is going to be paid towards the buyer's agent commission is not going to be counted as a seller credit. So if the max amount of seller credits that you're able to get on a transaction is 3 or 6%, you can get that 3 or 6% and then also get the buyer's agent commission on top of that.
So you get closing cost credit, 3 to 6%, just like, to use towards your closing. And then plus you can get some extra money that before was not allowed to pay your agent.
So so you get your buyer's agent commission is not going to be counted towards as a seller credit. So it's two separate things, and there are things that we're going to have to require in order for us to actually do that. We're going to need an addendum showing how much your compensation is, and a lot of different things that we're going to more documentation
more work for me. Thanks.
Right, more work for the attorney to draw up. But
how does that work with the appraisal?
That's where it can get ugly.
I've got some curiosity about that.
Yeah. So I mean, in regards to the appraisal, I don't think obviously value is going to be one of the most important parts.
They're not waiving appraisal?
No, it can't be on top of the appraisal.
I know, right?
I love when I get a file in where the appraisal's waived. I write my attorney review letter, the appraisal's been waived. And it's just like so much, to diffuse as much anxiety as we can diffuse. You write things in there as much. I'm a lawyer. Everything I write is mean, but when I can write something nice, I'm really excited.
Man.
Right. Sometimes I get paid really well to be mean. Sometimes.
Yeah. I want to know all your guys' opinion on how do you think it could potentially shake up the next.
Well, I think if it's like, unless the DOJ, like Patrick was saying, makes a law where you can't pay, like, what's the point of having the credit? Because all you're doing, if I'm the seller, I'm putting myself in a more vulnerable state. Then, okay, if I'm going to give my bottom line still the same, now I got to bank on this appraisal being $7-8 grand more. If it doesn't, now you have another problem here? Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you just put that on the seller side? It's coming from the same place.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, for me,
The problem is that, sorry to interrupt you, the problem is when the market is hot. Like, let's talk about right now, reality. There's no inventory, zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every contract I'm putting is multiple offers. I have to give like my freaking lung away to win the offer for my buyer.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna tell them, hey, you gotta pay me too. And what about in that
No,
listing, they don't wanna pay me.
The things I've
They're not
seen.
paying me.
Yeah, it's there's buyers with just not a lot of money too.
Then
Like, they don't have the money.
Okay, so then we expect the buyer to pay, right? We were talking off
Yeah.
camera about buyer agreements. You're like, hey, you guys should implement buyer agreements,
Well, you really need to protect yourself.
and that if they have money.
Well,
But we gotta talk like right here. I invited all you guys because we all deal with different kind of clients, and there's clients that have money, and there's clients that don't have money, and that's the truth. But we still want to make sure that they still have American dream is possible for them too. I've done actually most of my clients in my career was people with no money,
well,
and now
those are
they're worth a lot more because I was able to put them in their home.
You're absolutely right, and those are the people that need us the most.
Correct.
And those are the people that, by us, I mean, the professionals sitting at this table, but especially people like you and Frank. And I know there's going to be the subset of people like this, the 10% that think, I don't need a realtor. Maybe you don't.
No,
maybe you
there-
don't.
there is a
maybe,
section,
maybe
but-
you
but-
have the
but-
expertise to not need a realtor, but
right.
most people do.
They do.
Most people do. Not to find the house, but to help them not buy the wrong house. I've been saying that a lot. And,
Yeah, of course.
That's just like so important to emphasize, in
Of
my
course.
opinion.
I think the problem is people they get misrepresented, and then they feel as if they don't need a buyer's agent. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a buyer who came up to me and was like, I don't feel as if I need a buyer's agent. And, I was like, okay, well, what do you feel what value did the agent give to you? And they didn't meet them in person. All they did were opening doors, showing them houses. Like, obviously, anybody can open a door. So if they're not giving you any type of value, of course, you're not going to want a buyer's agent.
Yeah, that's-
or you're going to feel as if a buyer's agent's useless. I'm
Yeah,
like,
and that's why us as agents too, we have to step it up.
Right.
That's why I said a few podcasts ago, we have to become more knowledgeable. We have to show more value. We have to know what we're talking about.
Right, right.
There's
No
a lot
question.
of us that don't.
Well, and those are the ones that are really bringing down the reputation. And whenever I hear one of these ads that the National Association of Realtors runs, where it's like, you need a realtor that abides by a certain code, and it's all this stuff that like it means nothing. It means nothing to your average consumer.
That's right.
I'm just like, that's the $45 million that they are paying for marketing.
Correct.
The National Association to get that.
They should have used that money to hire a better attorney.
They should
defend themselves.
They should
That's
use-
where they should have used that money.
Well,
Well, their attorney sucked. Sorry.
Their attorneys are good. They just have bad clients. That's what I think about it. I mean, if you look at the attorneys they had working for them, trust me, those are some darn good attorneys. And the problem is you can't.
But they
walk
lost,
in.
man.
They did. A lot of
Okay.
good attorneys.
They lost from this attorney that I'm sorry, but this whole lawsuit, we're going backwards. I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong. I'm okay. I'll implement the change, but it's backwards.
I'm gonna defend my people.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing, and I've had this situation before, in my litigation career back in the day, and that is when you articulate a strategy to a client, and they go, "Nah, we're not doing that." And I know that the National Association of Realtors, as a client, told them the strategy they wanted to implement, and I reckon they knew it was a loser as they were going through it, because if you listen to the way that they tried to defend it, it's basically like, hey, we've always done it this way. What's wrong? What's your problem? And that's not a winning argument. They had a lot better arguments, and
can you share any of those like quick? Just because it's like as far as like.
you're putting me on the spot, but the whole thing is.
Well, it's not like
So-
different. It doesn't have to be exact, but
So a lot of people are saying that the changes that have ultimately been implemented aren't really changes, and they're right in a sense. Yeah. So the notion that that they've kept prices, kept commissions right there at a straight line that's 5% and 6% depending on where you're at, and if you just look at that, you would think, yeah, they must be talking to each other about that. But I don't think individual agents are really having conversations like that.
No, you're right. But that's the same thing with the tomatoes. If I go to Mariano's, I go to Dominic's, or I go to Caputo's, and they have all the same price, plus or minus. Are they all talking about each other? About the
Sometimes.
yeah.
I don't know.
Isn't that price fixing? The tomatoes, the milk. Like, there's a lot of stuff we could bring up.
I
And
mean,
say,
is it price fixing or is it the
similar.
market? I think
It's probably the market.
is where you're headed.
That's
there.
what I think.
And
but I get what you're saying.
But and the notion that we've got 6% as what we benchmark it at.
Yeah.
The point the plaintiffs were making is that it somehow it doesn't change over the course of many years, over the course of all these different markets, which isn't necessarily true because there are tons of agents out there. I mean, I would have pointed out that there are discount agents, there are agents that will just put you on the MLS, let you do all the work. There's all these other arrangements that are available and that are out there that I don't think that was really presented as far as like this market is more dynamic than what was the picture that was painted by the plaintiffs, in my opinion.
I think what's ironic about it, though, is the fact that they have a lawsuit over something where, when in their case, when they were buying a house, they didn't pay a buyer's agent commission. So, like, at the same time, yes, you're deferring the cost. Like, up front, yes, you don't have to pay for a buyer's agent, but then you yourself have to pay for a buyer's agent in the future if you're splitting the cost. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to me in my eyes, but I also don't think that's going to affect the market as much as of right now, yes, since we have low inventory, it could shake up the market.
Right.
But once inventory does pick up and things change, I think.
What about VA?
Yeah, that's gonna be.
What are you gonna do with VA?
Yeah, the sellers
They're gonna
can't
have to
pay.
make a
Yeah, they're gonna
change.
make the change.
Yeah,
They have
for
to
sure.
make the change.
You have to have VA borrowers on it at the very least on the same footing as conventional and FHA borrowers, because that's like the whole point.
Right.
The whole point of that program is actually to put them on a superior footing so that our veterans can purchase homes because of the sacrifices they made for the country.
They deserve it.
So I
it's
think
already
they will.
It's already hard right now. They should actually do even more. It's even more because even right now with VA, they get discriminated 100%.
Yeah, no one wants to be.
Every
VA,
single,
we don't want that.
Every single I able to push it through, and then I get yelled too. But I push it through because I know a contract and I know where I could could get them a house.
Right.
But they get discriminated all the time, and now it's even worse. They can't even get an agent.
Yeah.
So for now, we'll see what happens.
A VA offer is one of the best offers you can get. It's the least denied loan
They
product.
deserve it.
Yeah.
It's the least denied loan product. So if you're a seller and you're looking at whatever it is, 5 offers, and you're trying to compare them, and you're going, well, this conventional is 80-20 and blah blah blah. Don't throw out that VA that is 100% financing. First of all, and I'm gonna repeat what my good buddy, the VA loan nerd Joey Matthews said. And I'm sorry, I should be promoting people in front of me.
That's not good. It's not good.
I'm sure you guys can both be successful at the same time.
Yeah, that's good. That's what it is. It's not good.
But the reason that VA borrowers borrow 100% of the cost of the home is not because they're poor. Most of the time, they've got plenty of money. It's because they don't hate money. Yeah. Right? If you can borrow the money and stretch it out over 30 years and keep your cash in your hand to invest in other places, you're winning in 2 ways instead of maybe 1 way.
Right. No, I 100% agree, and I do think that it's a misconception with VA, FHA, all types of financing. I think that obviously as a listing agent, it is tough because the nature of the market, right? When you're talking to a seller, everyone knows, okay, conventional loan, that's the best type of loan. And people get freaked out with inspections, but like
do you have a hard time? Like, people get back to you?
I think representation as a lender is really important as well. Like, I think for us, the one thing that we do that's pretty well is follow up with the listing agent, give them a call, make sure that you edify them. Hey, it's a good buyer. Their payments lower with FHA, so that's the reason why they want to go.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it makes the seller's agent feel a lot more comfortable when you pick up the phone because
like an example right now, we had an offer. One of my agents has an offer. We have multiple offers. We're the listing agent. And we have these offers, and the VA offer is probably the best, and I like him, but he's using Rocket Mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
I like how you guys laughing. We don't know who to call. Right. There's an 800 number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that guy, the VA guy, felt bad for him. I told him, I proposed actually.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we'll tell him, give him a shot, but use one of our lenders.
Yeah.
And he has a shot.
Yeah.
Because then we'll know that you
No,
you can get it
100%,
done.
right.
That's what we thought.
Yeah.
But we like the thing like you do.
Yeah.
You call you
listing
approach the
agent,
listing
figure it
agent.
out.
Hey,
Yeah.
what's going on? You're fighting for that VA buyer.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice.
And that's important because
So-
it's similar to agents. I think lenders got to have some sort of good representation for
Absolutely.
their clients as well. You know, like
Absolutely,
at the end of the day, you have to bring forth value to people, right? Like you can't just be in a transaction and not get forth value and
I agree.
go the extra mile.
Yeah.
I don't see that your clients are ever getting an offer accepted if you don't have a lender that is not only willing to do that, but that's just like their practice, right?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and they can build a good rapport. I'll tell you, I had one of my referral partners reached out to me last week, and these calls that you're talking about, he said, do you mind calling the listing agent?
I'm glad you didn't mention the referral partner.
Well,
I'm joking.
So, but he asked me to reach out to the listing agent. He wanted to make the buyer side team look like a well stitched together team. Lender, attorney, agent, and I called the other agent up, and
Wow.
it was the first time I've ever been asked to do it. I'm like, I don't see why I wouldn't do it. I
That's
mean,
really good.
So I called them up. I even invited them to be on the podcast the other because I'm always looking for,
always
new
finding
people to
it.
bring
Yeah,
on the show, but I don't know how much influence I had. It was a really strong offer. It was as is. It was an escalation clause. It was an appraisal gap waiver. Every single lever you can pull to get your our offer accepted these days, they had pulled it. And so, if I had the ability to kind of boot them over the line, I feel pretty great about that. I mean, I'll never know how much influence I have, but
It doesn't hurt. I mean, sometimes if you're just the one, like if I'm on the listing side and I get this guy's blowing me up, I'm like, okay, these people really want the house.
Yeah.
If I get nothing, it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I had one where I called this is funny, when I called the lender, they're like, wait, who is it? And I told them the name, and they're like, oh man, I haven't talked to them in a while. Let me call them. I'm like, okay, and it's out.
wow.
Not that offer.
That one. I mean, it's just. I think the more it's just like anything else. The more your people are like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, okay, the maybe the client's pushing them, but at least you're like, okay, these people want the house. Like, I'll take anyone who wants the house, like over anything else, like, because they'll figure out a way to get it.
Yeah.
Like if they're wishy, like, they're gonna cancel. Like cash buyers, they cancel a lot. They're
Yeah.
good, but they cancel a lot. They're like,
they think they have more advantage. Cash buyers think that that's more of an advantage than it really is. The fact is, most loans close, and most people who are borrowing money are going to offer you more money for the home.
Yeah.
Right.
And just to close the loop on the other one, my last thought is, what if I hadn't made that call and they didn't get their offer accepted? How would I feel then?
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I was locked in. I
good.
had to do it.
That's
So, I don't know if that's going to become a practice. She was like, the lawyers I work with when I'm representing buyers are really not going to like you, because I'm going to probably start asking them to do this. And I was just like, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah, you're like loving it. You're like loving it.
As
Well,
much grief as
I
they've
think
given
though,
me
but it's
over
like
the years.
it's an unusual thing, like we always call and lenders call too. But if you get the attorney to call, it's like, hey,
It's pretty
okay,
cool.
they already got the attorney set, so this guy must be serious.
attorney's
Like,
on top of it.
the attorney's calling me
Because
so
of that
it must be the
real-
real deal, because the attorneys don't want to like
Realistically,
cancel
the
deals.
attorneys, it's hard to call anybody. The paralegals
Yeah.
call. And the paralegals, sorry for paralegals. I give you guys some maybe are great, but some of them don't even know. They just got out of college maybe, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And they don't know, you know what I mean?
It's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag, exactly.
Well, and some lawyers,
So-
their ability to build rapport is about the same as a brick.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily want that lawyer calling and yes, hi, I'm the lawyer, and yes, I'm representing this buyer,
Right.
and I think that yes, I will do a very good job at.
Right,
oh my God, no, I don't. I'm not working with you.
Right. No. I'm actually pretty crazy when I'm following up with listing agents now, because again, it's so competitive now.
You're going in quick,
So
right?
I'll text them. I'll call them. They don't pick up. I'll text them, and then I'll follow up. Hey, I know we spoke on the phone yesterday. Thank you so much. Any updates? You need anything?
No, you
they
have.
put-
You've been on the other side with me.
Yeah. There you
I
go.
was a listing agent, and he was like following up like crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I know you know John.
Well,
blah, blah,
it kind of makes me think it could be true or not, but like, okay, their buyer must be, there's pre-qualified, and there's okay,
Yeah.
is this guy really gonna, because
But-
there's some shaky people. But if I got the lender calling me, I'm like, all right, he's not gonna be sending me. I mean, it's
the
less
way-
likely, right?
Yeah, the way
he's-
that I look at it is the listing side, the seller side. You guys are always going to call me. What's the CTC? What's the status? So at least if I'm calling you up front, now you guys feel more
Absolutely.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Now you have the ability to call me and be like, hey, is anything going wrong? Is everything? No, everything's good. We're gonna be closed on this date. Da, da, da. Like that's the way I look at it, because I'm gonna get the call regardless. I know you guys are gonna call me, so I mean, you might as well build a rapport up front. So.
It makes a difference. Just seeing a name on page 13 of the multi-board, it doesn't really evoke any kind of feeling or emotion. And when you have a conversation with someone on the phone, you can actually feel who that person is, hear who they are, and you've got a much better way of evaluating how serious of a person they are, other than just saying rocket.
Right.
I don't need to dunk on them. I
had fine deals with them too.
Yeah.
But they need more like A paper.
Yeah.
If they got A paper, they'll get it done. If the paper is, and that means like A meaning like perfect credit, perfect income, perfect everything.
Yeah.
But if somebody has like 3 different business, and one guy pays him cash, one gives him, he works part-time at another job, then it's gonna be, they're almost like, it's dead, the deal's dead. They're not gonna, but with you'll go through the file.
Yeah.
You'll see what's going on.
Yeah.
How can you push it?
Yeah.
How can you make sure that, your underwriter approves it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big difference.
Yeah.
So it's good what you do.
Yeah, one we had where the guy was moving states, and it's like they just didn't think like, oh well, do you have a job where you're going?
Yeah.
Then it was like, okay, like then you get the offer, then the week later, like, oh yeah, we don't have a job there, so I'm like, yeah, we're moving, we have a job, I'm gonna get it. It's like then, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you need
they
a job.
They just didn't ask. Whoever was doing it didn't bother to check that.
Right.
So sometimes like those are things that people don't realize. Like, hey, they qualify, but they don't qualify because they're going to be
moving. Right. Right.
But besides all that, going back to the,
I'm just telling you what you got to think about.
But guys, besides all that, going back to the hot topic. Sorry. NAR. I know you guys are trying to get off, but going back to the hot topic, you could do whatever call you want, but if the listing agent is not offering commission to the buyer agent, it doesn't matter. Your offer is not going to look as strong as the other guy that's
waiving all the commission and
waiving everything, waiving commission. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No,
and they have a buyer that's going to pay them. Let's say the other buyer agent has a buyer that's going to pay them, and then our buyer, poor guy, they only has $7,000 in his bank. Yeah. And that's his whole down payment. He's gonna do like some Illinois program. You give him a grant.
Right. But I think that there's gonna be an influx in assistance and influx in FHA.
It has to be, right?
Yeah, but getting back
to be tough.
I had a multiple situation. And it was just like, it's a condo. So condos, when it comes to appraisals, man, it's there's no room.
Yeah.
And there was one that needed a big credit. I'm sorry. I'm like, can they go? What if they don't? What if we don't appraise? Can they? Like, whatever. We'll eat the $8,000 credit and we'll come down, but we can't come down $8,000 and then pay your credit too and come down $16,000.
See,
So that's kind of where it's like, hey, if you need the credit, then sorry.
Sorry.
I'm not gonna run the risk because it's all coming. Once I listed that place, I got the offer. I'm like, it's all come down to appraisal.
Yeah.
There's no comps. So,
but that's the problem I'm having with the whole situation. The little guy is going to be the one that's going to pay the consequence.
Well, yeah, I think so. So, I do have some ideas about, some things that will perhaps become more of a thing. So, for example, I wouldn't be surprised. So, how there's businesses and some, I know some brokerages have programs where they'll like lend money to a seller to fix up some parts of the home to get it ready for sale, and then they get paid out of the proceeds. Not exactly the same thing, but I would imagine some brokerages are going to offer like unsecured loans to cover the cost of commissions that are, to the gap between what the seller is offering as a broker co-op as opposed to what is owed under the buyer representation agreement. And
we take cash or credit.
Well, I mean, it'll be like a little,
it makes sense.
A 5-year note,
but that'll help out a lot of the buyers. They want to compete.
Well, it'll help out the buyers, but it makes sense for the agents, the brokerages to offer this because it's going to help them get paid, right? So that's one little idea. I think you're going to have outside companies that start to offer this. I think you're going to have lenders that offer these second unsecured loans. Now, how that will mesh with the Freddie and Fannie guidelines. Obviously that will have to be worked out. It'll change the debt to income ratios certainly.
What do you think deep inside? I know you read the whole thing, right? And first of all, it got extended. Correct me if I'm wrong, to August 17 versus July.
I think it's maybe you're right.
And I think
if that happened very recently.
Yeah, recently, like a couple days ago.
Yeah, I've been
And I think
swamped. So I haven't been. I should have prepared better.
And that was strategic because they know the market slows down around August, and that was all strategic. So
yeah, that makes sense.
And they know the market, and then it'll be different. Right now, the market's still hot. July will still be hot.
And they might be.
What do you think? Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
What do you think? Is there some another goal? I'm just being I'm speculating now. Is there something else going on? They're trying to change the system on the buying side. Maybe on the seller side, I don't see a change, but on the buying side, are they trying to make it where there's some kind of fancy technology where the buyer acts as a house by himself, the buyer submits the offer by himself, and then gets like some kind of listing agent, has somebody at the office I sent out and represent the guy.
Well, that's what.
What do you think?
That's what Zillow wants.
Yeah.
Zillow wants it to be where they're the first and last touch point in that process.
Okay.
Which I think is going to leave a lot of buyers with a lot of bad taste in their mouth because they are not going to get the representation they need. I mean, you think about it. If you're a listing agent and you're representing, so you have a seller, and you've got a multiple offer situation that has arisen, and you've got 4 offers, one of which is unrepresented. They're not going to have a multi-board 7.0 because they don't have access to it. So they're going to submit some janky form that they downloaded off the internet.
What about?
It's going to come in. They're never going to be a home buyer.
What about if I got a software where they could just click, and they'll be connected with one of my agent at the office, and my agent could represent them?
I mean, again, that sounds a lot like what Zillow and Realtor.com are already doing.
But if there's all these difficulties and all these all these stuff are coming up with this NAR settlement, maybe what about these big companies are backing up this lawsuit? They actually there's stuff behind the scenes we don't even know.
All right, so
I'm just saying. I'm sorry. Maybe you call me crazy, but I don't trust. I don't trust nobody.
We're going tinfoil hat here, and I'm here for it. So
yeah.
Look, if there's something, if the powers that be are pulling the strings behind the scenes, I mean, perhaps that is what they have in mind. I think that, however, it's going to be the way that things are done is very, very entrenched. And I think that is a big part of why things don't seem to change. Okay. Zillow tried to fight the agents and ended up joining forces with them. You've got all these, Redfin tried to just...
They tried 1%.
And guess what Redfin just did? They just took their agents off salary.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They're trying to join them too.
So these disruptors, everyone's coming in, we'll do 1%.
And then we had open doors and other companies that fail.
So, no one has a better alternative. Every alternative has either failed or they have joined the thing that they thought they were going to disrupt.
I think just for now, because I think, and maybe you'll call me crazy again, because right now, right now people are still, the real estate's still emotional.
Oh, it is.
And people can just do it on the phone. Still, even if they search on the phone and they think they don't need an agent, but at the end of the day, they'll call an agent. But I think when my kids grow up, it might change.
Well, here's the end game on this, and so if AI turns out to be the thing that we all expect it to be, I would imagine that at some point there's going to be a way for AI to kind of feed you 3 homes, and one of those is going to be the perfect one, and it will already know the one that you're going to pick. But human beings, we like to have choice. We like to have freedom. So it'll give you 3, and 9 times out of 10, it'll already know the one you're going to pick, and that's probably how things are going to go down someday in the future when we have flying cars.
Well, they're trying to automate everything. I don't know how much you guys know, but lending too, they're trying to automate that. I know Amazon's investing heavily on to automate the whole entire process for the mortgage side. So whether that's income, not even have to verify and pay stubs, just doing a verification.
Just doing everything on
it's all electronic. They're trying to get to where it's closing
click
in.
Here, click
yeah. And obviously, you're still gonna need a loan officer for the files that we were talking about. They may need a little more tender love and care, but similarly, they're just trying to make everything automated.
No offense to you guys. I think that's where we have to actually get in the car and go somewhere.
100%.
And have a product. So it's I think for us we'd be down the road if we'd be eliminated.
But for them too, think about it.
For them,
if they have a difficult file, man, it's hard work.
Yeah.
They need to figure out. Some people don't know where their pay stub is.
Yeah.
Where they filed tax, they didn't file tax. They filed them wrong. He has to call the accountant. They got to make sure they file them right.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Right.
There's all kind of headaches.
Right.
So
And
if
they
they
got-
don't have a Justin,
You
sorry, I'm
got
not promoting you guys. If they don't have a Justin,
We have
joking around.
we have an episode tomorrow morning
good.
at 10:15 a.m. at thehomebuyershour.com. You can come
so if they don't have a Justin, they're not getting a loan.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No, I know.
So-
Well, that's the same thing with the
So
other
maybe-
side, like what he was saying, what Patrick was saying about the house. Like, okay, you get some like red. I mean, no offense to them, Redfin. Well, I can offend them. I mean, we've done hot property open houses, and you see the guy come. You could see him a mile away. He's got like
I know.
he's just putting his time in. Yeah, warm up
He's
pants
going
on,
with his
flip
jogging
flops. Like he's going to the beach after, and it's like,
come on.
man.
Yeah,
Just at least have some kind of. So like they're not getting the house. Like that's the difference. Like those people, they're not going to get the house.
Right.
So sometimes it comes to the difference, especially when it's competitive and you got to
Burnout.
move and you got to move fast.
Yeah.
And you
need
got
the
someone
guy-
texting the guy,
you need the guy with
or you just have a piece of paper come in that, I mean, sometimes, if someone's like, oh, I did Rocket. Okay, did you just go on, was it, 11:45 p.m. and did 4 clicks, or did you sit down with somebody? There's a big difference there.
Right,
Of
right.
like, okay, are you really ready to go, or you just told them what they want to hear, like nothing reviewed, no
Right.
credit. You got a piece of paper,
I
but
don't
they
know.
didn't pull credit. They didn't look at no paperwork or no anything. So
Yeah.
but they're like, oh, I'm pre-approved. Oh,
I
it's
don't
good
know about
for
you
it's.
guys, but I hate like Xfinity, all these companies that you got to pick up the phone,
Oh,
press
yeah,
one.
Oh, dude, I've
press
been 2
two,
years. I've been
press
2 years
three.
trying to get my thing doesn't rewind. I'm paying for it, and they sent me a new box. I just set it up. Didn't work.
And that's my point is like, the same process for,
Oh, yeah,
for all of
18,
us. I'm all about service. Service
Yeah.
is like 100% for everything I do, whether it be for real estate agent lenders. I think service is one of the most important parts.
Yeah,
about the
I go back to when I argue with Greg when he talks about his AI theory. I mean, there's still people selling cars.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're selling the same thing. Like if you're gonna buy a new a new Toyota, whatever it is, they're the same. You can pick the color that you. I mean, I know there's other companies that do it.
You're just a little naive.
Well, they're still paying. them.
I'm just saying.
So Justin, what are you seeing out there? Rates?
For sure. I mean, interest rates right now, you're going to be in the 7s, mid 7s, depending down payment credits, a lot of different things. But
what's the feel with the people, with the public?
I think the hardest part is the transition. Like, you go from 21, 22, and now people have a rate shock. I think people are finally starting to adjust now. They're probably like, okay, 7, 6s are it's a little bit more normal than what it was last year. But a lot of times now people, what they're doing, obviously it's harder to get seller credits, but if you are able to, people are using the seller credits to buy down their interest rate. There's things that we're trying to strategize. To
Currently, right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I forgot about something. When was it last year? They started those 2-1 buy
2-1
down.
buy downs,
Like
yeah.
pretty soon, those are going to be coming up.
Yeah,
Like, one of those.
yeah.
Like, is anybody?
Right. I mean, if you get enough credits, the hardest part, again, 2-1 buy down requires a lot of credits, right? So if you have multiple offers, you ask for credits, like it's hard for people to be able to do things that they want to do.
I haven't heard
so.
too many of them. Like they were hot when they first came out, but
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, are rates even going down anyway?
Right,
So what are
right.
we-
And
what are we
it
doing?
depends. It's tough to be able to just negotiate all those things, and that's the hardest part about the market right now is, you have low inventory, you have people that are putting offers on houses, they want to buy down their rate, they want their payment to be at a certain amount, but at the same time, they really want the house.
Yeah.
So it's like so many different variables that are coming into the market, and, as a first-time home buyer, it's scary. You're getting into a market where, you fall in love with a house, but you got 5 other people putting an offer on the same house, and you're like, okay, well, I want to use the 5,000 in credits to lower my rate. But you're not able to get the credits, right?
yeah.
So it's
No,
like
you gotta-
it's definitely a difficult time. But at the same time, I think with the right guidance, the right team, and I think the right representation, that's where
I think if they're in love with the house, you just do what you got to do.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's just if it's hard to find a house that
Yeah.
you really like and.
yeah.
Whatever, 5,000, the grand scheme of things, and a $400,000 house or $300,000 house, it
Right.
just is what it is. It's,
Right.
You
You
got
gotta
to take it.
figure
You
it
got to
out.
keep it in perspective. So.
Right. I do agree.
What about you, Patrick? How's the attorney reviews going?
Yeah, I gotta say, some of the stuff I'm seeing is, in some ways, somewhat unprecedented, in terms of just the kinds of things that sellers feel emboldened to turn you down for. They don't want to consider higher tax prorations, even though it's a 2020. We have a reproration coming up for Chicago in 2024 this year. Which will affect next year's taxes and the following 3 years. They just go, no, 105%, which, that might be a little wonky for some of you who are, more on the consumer side of things. But trust me, what that means is you're going to have not enough of the seller's money to cover what the seller really ought to be covering for taxes that were attributable to times that they own the property. Just one example. I mean,
But that's a common problem with the tax proration.
It is.
But whose fault is that?
Well,
isn't that Illinois fault? I think.
Well, Cook County. It's not.
Taxes and arrears. Then whenever all these closes are messed up, it happened to me too on a building I closed. I asked for 130% because I saw the assessed value. I'm like, dude, the assessed value is 200. I'm buying a building at 450. I mean, we're not doing that. I'm
that gives you a clear indication of the writing that's on the wall. Now, it's the county, and Cook County is always different. Okay, out in the collar counties, things are a lot calmer. You would have just got your real estate tax bill for 2023. It has both installments; they're equal installments. It won't be
more
than probably a few $100s higher.
Which
than
county?
what it. Lake, McHenry, DuPage, Will,
you're right.
Literally any other county. And the fun fact, if you didn't know this, do you know why real estate taxes are paid in arrears?
I don't.
Why? So it's because back in the Great Depression, they gave everyone a year off, but they didn't. They're not going to not collect the taxes. Wow. So they just pushed all of the taxes 1 year down. So it goes back to like the 1930s. So there you go.
That's a cool fact.
Never caught up.
We're never gonna catch up. Can you imagine next year? All of the state of Illinois got to pay double real estate taxes.
They do, but they just keep it in the rears. Well, they just double the tax.
I would hope at least they'll wait until they raise the state and local tax, income tax. What do you call it? Deduction. Because if you max out at 10 grand on that, it's going to be very, very sad if you've got to pay all those taxes. But anyways, this is boring topic. No one wants to talk about property taxes.
But right now, the biggest thing I see. I know we're talking off camera about special assessment. That's a huge problem. You do a lot of condos, right?
Yeah, I do.
Presentation, yeah.
And there's really a couple things informing this. So,
people love hiring you because you love to read a lot. So you're reading all the bylaws and the docs.
We can clip this part out, right? I don't love reading it, but I do love finding things that my clients need to know before
actually really good.
They put their hard-earned money down on a condo.
I like it.
I've got a client who knew about a special assessment going in and made it part of their offers that they're assuming the $26,000 special assessment on this condo. That won them the multiple offer bid. And so, it's not great. I'm seeing a lot of special assessments. There's a lot of deferred maintenance on a lot of these condos. It makes sense because if you are in the present and you go, well, we don't have to fix it, and you can kick the can down the road for the next owner, you that's kind of the incentive to do it. And that's, at some point, that hot potato gets, it
needs to get done.
You end up with the hot potato in your lap. It's a lot. Another aspect of it that is the reason why it's happening now. Why now? As if you remember, Surfside, the condominium that collapsed in Florida in 2022. In July of 2023, Fannie and Freddie, you can speak to this, tightened up the requirements for making a condo warrantable.
And they made it so much more difficult. I mean, there's so many different things in the condo questionnaire that they ask now to make sure and ensure that structurally that the condominiums are sound. So it is a little bit more difficult, and they also
to navigate.
They also implemented it's like a condo kind of. When a lender denies a condo, it's called a CPM where it'll upload whether or not the condo is denied or not.
Wow.
So if let's say your buyer's CTC, but some other people have denied the condo, it could potentially ruin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had that on one, and we ended up pivoting.
Did you kill it?
Sorry. It's always attorneys, man. They always kill deals.
We found a way to close this one.
Wow.
We pivoted to another lender who was able to go, what do you call it? Non-conventional.
Non-warrantable condo.
Yeah, they're where they hold their own paper. And, with the idea that you get you get a higher interest rate, and there's some aspects of those loans that make them less attractive, which is why most people would prefer to go conventional. But in this situation, it was really the only way to make the deal happen. Eventually, interest rates will will go down, and
Wait.
at that point they'll
Will
they'll
go
down.
down?
They will eventually. I mean,
How do you know eventually it's going to go down?
because all I have to do is look at history. They go up, they go down.
Okay.
What
So
the
good.
interest rates will go up, they'll go down. What they're not going to do is stay the same. And
true.
eventually, we will see the inflation numbers get to where they need to be, and hopefully we won't be in a recession at that point, and they will loosen up the money.
I mean, they
supply.
talked about this year. I mean, going to interest rate that they were going to drop it 3 times. It was going to go down.
Yeah, and then the numbers didn't
And
support
The
it.
numbers ain't having. So now and it's funny because interest
Guys,
rates
stop
were taking a
spending
dip.
money.
Right.
You're spending too much money. You're doing too much. Stay home, play video games.
Stop buying cars.
So, but that means
Stop it.
that means there's too much money in the economy too.
Well, y'all are getting too many raises.
Right.
You got all this money.
But you know what they're
it's
getting?
COVID
Okay.
money though. I mean, everyone.
Wait,
all
not
co-
only COVID money, there is also lender.
I spent all my
It's
COVID
also
money. It's all
equity
gone.
lines,
Yeah,
cash
no,
out,
yeah, there's
cash
a lot of
out,
cash out.
equity lines. Everybody over leveraging.
Well, I think again,
Just saying.
our economy is not the only economy that had a lot of COVID money, right? Like now, a lot of economies are experiencing the same thing that we're as an economy experiencing right now. So inflation's hot everywhere, and it's just something that's gonna have to play itself out. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't do much about it other than continue to have rates high until
I almost again. Sorry, interrupt.
They're good.
Speculating. Today I'm speculating, doing crazy talk. I almost think like inflation, they're actually okay with inflation because we're trying to pay off our debt with this inflation because whatever we owe to China is going to be peanuts by the time inflation keeps going up.
If you have big credit card bills, you should root for inflation because you're paying off all that debt with money that's not worth as much as when you borrowed it.
That's right.
So you know what? I changed my mind. Keep spending. Have at it. Just spend all that money, and you're going to pay it back with cheaper money in the future.
But what it comes down to, we're in real estate, and we're all in the real estate business, and I promote real estate big time, and because there's a hedge against inflation too. There's the money at the bank.
Right.
My money at the bank is worth jack shit.
Right.
At least my property is going up.
I'm allowed to say that word?
Sorry, yeah, you're
Yeah.
allowed.
Nice.
XR,
Yeah.
we're free spirit here. You can say whatever you want.
This is a safe space. Okay.
Safe
Safe
space.
But yeah, so you know what I mean. So that's why I'm like buying still, however it is, with the higher rates and everything, still makes sense.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important people, a lot of people obviously watch the podcast, probably is in the industry, and I think one of the main things that we have to kind of insight is just giving back positivity to everybody, because I think that the more you listen to the news, the more that you listen to everything that's going to occur.
Yes.
If you listen to the news and it lets you deter away from your business,
God, the news.
you're
The
not
world is ending for them.
exactly.
Yeah.
You got to make
Yeah.
sure that you put your head down and you work.
Yep,
There's some lenders
I
that
agree.
don't want to work. There's some attorneys. There's some real estate agents that
Realtors.
don't want to work. And at the end of the day, if you're not working, you're not going to get the business. So I think the more that you listen to the news, I think it's important to be educated on it. But I don't think just drown your whole business because the news is telling you that the world is ending.
No, keep going.
No, keep working, Brian.
Yeah,
That's
keep going.
the most important part.
Speaking of the news, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, so do with that as you will. But a lot of people are complaining about like hedge funds, like BlackRock, other big institutional investors getting into the real estate market. And certainly if you're trying to outcompete them in places where they are buying, thankfully they're not buying here in Chicago or Illinois, because it's just not a place they want to be involved with. There's too many rules. But there's a reason that they're buying real estate. It's not because they're evil.
That's right.
I mean, maybe they're evil, but the reason they're buying real estate is because they see an opportunity.
They know.
They've done the numbers, and they see that even though the conventional wisdom suggests that real estate is too expensive, overpriced, institutional investors have run the numbers and determined that actually it's underpriced, it's undervalued. If you want to get, and with high interest rate, with the higher interest rates than what we're accustomed to, it puts a lot more people on the sidelines. It allows them to get in and make wise investments in real estate. And once they appreciate to where they think that it's meant to be valued at, they're going to sell it back to us.
Right.
Okay. Now, why do I mention this? It's because if you are thinking, well, I'm gonna wait till interest rates drop, or I'm gonna wait for this, or I'm gonna wait for that before you're investing in real estate, I would follow the hedge funds, because they usually know the winning move.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Right.
Well, yeah, and then I'm a little scared when the rates come down. It's like it's so competitive now.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck's gonna happen if they come down to 4?
Well, the counterpoint is that psychologically, people are gonna want to sell more.
Yeah,
they'll
but-
have more inclined to sell.
Yeah, but they're gonna buy too.
Yeah,
So it's an even swap. If I
Yeah, but
gotta,
there's more-
okay, now I'm gonna make the move. Then I got another buyer to compete with.
Right. But I think just the main point is there's no inventory because there's no sellers, right? No one wants to
Yeah.
sell. You
Well,
got 2%, 3% interest rate. You know, if it's these 4 or 5, people are gonna be more inclined to
I
sell.
know.
More
Yeah,
interest
but
in the
yeah, no,
market.
but just to me, it's just kind of a.
And it also, what's important is materials. Is that where is the pricing on materials? Is there going to be new builds? Like those are all the things that it's super expensive right now for people to build. So that's why there's not a lot of people building. You know?
Yeah,
So,
you can't build affordable housing because you can't find affordable building materials
Exactly.
to do it. I
Exactly.
mean, these builders, say what you will about them, but they're in business to make money,
Right.
and there needs to be an environment for them where it makes sense to put up a home.
Right.
And if it doesn't make sense, if the only home it makes sense to put up is a $2 million McMansion in Lincoln Park, then that is what's going to get built.
Right.
And so, for me, if you look at that and you want to talk about how do we solve that problem, I mean, that's really a policy issue for the government to intervene in, because the market is going to do what the market does. And we don't, as consumers, we can't expect sellers of these materials to just be like, well, we're feeling nice and we'd like to sell it to you for less than what we could sell it to for someone else. Now we'll have shortages.
Some policies should change to make it more, where it's builder is more friendly for the builder to build, is more friendly to rent.
Well,
right?
Should it cost $30,000 for a building permit?
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
come on. And someone from government is going to, I'm sure, have some very valid arguments. But government is the one entity that, regardless of what's coming in income-wise from a building permit or whatever your water bill, they have the ability to tax elsewhere to make up that difference. So that's that's part of what I'm talking about when you talk about policy, which is to tax where you can, where is appropriate to drive down certain behaviors, and at the same time, tax less to encourage other behaviors.
But if you think about it, even the rental market is getting crazy. People cannot find a lot of, even a home to rent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inventory.
There's too many of us, and we all want to live in the same spot.
I know.
Right.
But think about if there's a policy where it used to be coach homes. You guys know what coach homes are, right? In the back. The garage.
Accessory dwelling unit is what they call.
Why don't you implement that? That will open up a lot of.
I think they did. I think
They did on a limited basis. It's kind of a pilot program.
Yeah.
There should be, you could walk into the Daily Center on the 11th floor is where the building court is, and you could sit in any one of those places all day long. And any one of those courtrooms over on the 11th floor, the even number courtrooms, the odd number courtrooms over there are for all the credit card lawsuits. I know.
Wow.
The nerdy information I know because I'm a lawyer. But case after case, there will be the city of Chicago telling people they've got to tear out an illegal unit.
Illegal basement, illegal that.
If I'm, I'm making, a broad generalization. Obviously, if it's not suitable because it's a fire hazard, okay,
code
fine.
violation, yeah.
But at the same time, we recognize that there is an issue with a lack of housing. Maybe we should be providing, I don't know, some kind of, something for these people to actually make the instead of tearing it out, make the renovation.
Right.
Yeah, like an option.
I think we have, in my opinion, we have a strong middle class in the Midwest. But the more and more policies they put in, and the more and more restrictions, we're going to become more California, where there's rich and poor. There's no middle class.
Yeah.
Or you're poor on welfare, and you're pooping on the street. Or, sorry, but it's true. Or you're rich and have a $10, $20 million house.
Yeah.
What's nice about that? That's not America.
Yeah.
America's here, the Midwest.
Right.
No,
That's the real dream.
That's not nice at
American
all.
dream.
And I mean, what you have to go through to build a home here in the city of Chicago, I mean, it's outrageous. It's outrageous, the hoops you have to jump through, the amount of money you have to pay, and it's very much NIMBY-centric in the sense that, two people who own $2 million homes, McMansions in Wicker Park or Lincoln Park or any of the parks, They don't want a 3 flat, even if it's a nice 3 flat next door, because they can't park and they can't, it's
Right.
it's they paid $2 million, and they want their neighbor to be a $2 million home afforder, so that they can hatch ways to take more money from poor people, because that's what rich people do, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm kidding. /S.
Man, you're getting banned after this podcast.
Yeah, if you guys put this
Sorry,
up the right way, I'll have to leave town.
But for you two guys, like, do you guys see, like, what, we're, me and Greg are agents with the NAR thing. Do you guys, what are agents telling you guys? Like, we know in the realtor world, I guess people would talk to us different than you guys. What are you guys hearing more?
Honestly, on my end, I don't think a lot of people have been educated on it.
Keeping quiet?
Yeah,
Keeping
they
quiet?
haven't really talked about it a lot. And when I do talk about it, they don't feel as if it's really going to affect anything. But again, it goes back to my point originally. I think whenever people talk about the situation, I don't think it should change your business or change anything that you've been doing. Continue to do the things that you do on a daily basis.
Adapt.
But at the same time, exactly, you have to adapt and don't fall into the negativity, right? Like, you just got to put your head down, continue to work, and I think everything will line itself up. What if the market turns bad? But what if you lose?
You never
business?
know.
It could happen, but at the same time, don't change your routine.
You change, you keep it up, and maybe you got to make a little bit less money for the first year, but keep going.
Right.
And you figure out, then you make the second year.
Right.
So,
I don't think it's going to change much at all, to be honest.
No? What are you hearing back? Look what Frank was saying.
Well, I mean, go to my comment section. It's just, you don't need realtors. Oh, well, yeah. What about this? Well, it's just a bunch of noise.
Agents worried.
Well, look, if I had to give one piece of advice to agents, don't be afraid to ask someone to sign a buyer representation agreement. They'll do it. They're not going to sit there and go, oh, I'm not signing that. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, they're not going to see the house that they want to see if they don't. The houses they want to see if they don't sign an agreement with you. So, there's two sides to that coin. If you're unrepresented as a buyer, just running around open house to open house, you're not going to get very far. You're going to want an agent beside you to help you formulate that offer. Even if there's not a multiple offer situation. By the time that contract hits my desk, and I'm looking at things like tax prorations, and I'm looking at whatever it is, what's there is already there.
Right.
So if the other side says no to my modifications, that's that. So the person who helped you prepare that offer was your agent. They're the ones with the expertise on preparing an offer. Don't be afraid to
Can I ask you a question, actually?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt you. What about, let's say I'm doing a deal and they offer me like 1%, right? And then at the modification letter, the buyer wants to give me the right addendum and everything. Wants to pay, like, hey, Greg deserves 2%. So you're going to feel comfortable to ask in the modification letter my extra 1% for me?
If that's what the buyer wants me to do. I mean, look, I work at the behest of my client. Okay. And if my client says, look, I have an agreement with my buyer with my agent, I'm on the buyer side, and it's to pay them 2% of the purchase price. The broker co-op is 1%. Can you ask them for a credit for that amount?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see why at all I have a problem with that. I mean,
But that's what I'm saying. I think like more and more of these stuff is going to happen with the agents that are ones afraid. Do not worry. Just keep being flexible. Figure stuff out. Be a little creative.
And be transparent with the lender too.
Be transparent with everybody.
We had a loan where neighborhood loans, not me.
Okay.
But neighborhood loans had a loan where the buyer's agent had an addition to whatever their commission was. I think it was 2.5%. They added 1%.
Oh, I might know the buyer. I might know.
I think we know who it is.
But anyway, go ahead.
So he added
I think we know that
1%
agent.
on top of the 2.5%. And didn't disclose it throughout the whole entire process. And then we're at the closing table. We finally balance.
He does it at closing.
And then, bam, 1%. And the buyer's like, well, I don't have these extra funds. Well, they signed a buyer's agreement. And,
wow.
So now we're scrambling, figuring out. And at the closing table, she found out how to get. She had enough money in her account. So we had verifiable funds. But she's like, well, the money that I had in my bank statement at that point in time and no longer had, I had to pay bills for whatever reason.
Yeah, but now, what's the agent saying? Like, how could you? I could never.
The agent just ghosted. It was
he just like, okay, and so he just ghosted. Yeah.
Depend where you work. Because depend where you work. Sorry, not them promoting XR. Depend where you work. The company's like, hey, you signed it, Mr. Buyer. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You signed it. This is a term and this is a date.
Yeah.
You owe me that money.
Yeah.
So they can't. The closer's not going to fund it because they get.
Well, they're verifiable. I mean, we can fund it. We
I'm saying the closer's not going to be. They got this.
Well,
thing.
they ain't got the check. They're like, oh, your check is short.
The later they have enough money,
yeah,
because to pay everybody out.
Right.
So the guys ghosted.
So now it ended up being, but the neighborhood loans ended up giving lender credit to get the loan.
Wow.
Closed. Yeah, we ended
but
up
that's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad. That the agent screwed the client.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not going to get more referrals, but he screwed his client.
Yeah.
Don't
No mercy.
do that. That is a horrible business practice.
Yeah.
And if you think, well, they'll just figure it out, your reputation is going to
Terrible.
suffer.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you might make more money in the short term, but man, that review is going to get written on,
Of course.
on Zillow.
100%.
It's going to get written on Yelp. It's going to
Yeah.
get written. You make
That's
people that angry. Angry people do angry
Yeah.
stuff. And I will tell you,
But
I
yes or
was an
no?
angry person yesterday.
But yes
because
or
I
no,
think-
Patrick? Yes or no? You know why?
I'm going to
Because
tell a story about me getting.
go ahead. Go ahead, though. Tell me about your angry person.
I bought a new air conditioning unit 2.5 years ago, and I found out that it wasn't blowing cold air. This is for one of my rentals, and so I called someone out there. I'm assuming it's probably going to be covered by the warranty, right? I mean, it's 2.5 years ago. No, it's not. It's not.
Sorry.
$1,684 out of my pocket.
Oh, shoot.
And I was an angry person, and I said some angry things to the technician who
I
was
get
telling
it.
me about how because I hadn't had my yearly servicing that the warranty was
there's a
not going to be
clause.
covered. I was
Yeah.
just like, I wish someone had said something. It's so annoying. Well,
that's
you're a lawyer,
true.
you should have read it.
But he said he said he sent you paperwork, right? And you didn't read in the fine print. Is that correct? What did he tell you? Tell me what he told you.
He told me.
I wanna know
well,
the story.
You didn't have the annual servicing. And,
Okay.
And most likely they're going to reject. The
But you
claim.
were not aware of it, right?
I wish someone would have
But
said something.
he probably said you initial or click a box somewhere. Yes.
Well, here's the funny thing is, had they told me, they would have got another 150 out of me last year.
I get it.
To cover the servicing and every year thereafter. I mean,
But I'm positive there was some kind of form or something.
I'm sure. And
So what about now a buyer when he wants to see houses, he wants to see 10 houses, he just like, hey, yeah, sign here, sign there. And some big company has a fine print screwing him just like the air conditioning people screw you.
There's going to be a lot more angry,
I'm just saying, that
bad
could happen.
reviews.
Let's be real. Like where you like go around the bush. That could happen.
Yeah.
That is going to happen.
Yeah.
Look, this is a service business, okay?
I'm just
If
saying.
you're not, and you're right, Greg.
Sorry.
I'm not disputing what you're saying because there will be unscrupulous companies out there that are going to use the fact that they have to have a buyer broker agreement signed to get someone locked into 6 months before they know that they want to lock into 6 months with a particular agent, or it'll be with an agent and then they get sent out with one of their minions that they don't like.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's any number of ways that could go wrong for the consumer. And if that is what the prevailing solution to this problem is, then boy, did this consumer-oriented litigation go horribly wrong, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's
the other thing is we're not, well, like we're commission based, right? So it's like, and if you, like you were saying before we got on camera, like okay, you miss a phone call, that's like money out your window. Well, I got someone locked in. I'm sure there's gonna be people like, you know what? I don't want to work today. I'm doing something. I don't want to squeeze that in. They're like, I can't go nowhere. I got them. So I'll go on Monday. Oh, can you go Monday? Okay, Tuesday, Wednesday. Okay, then you just go down the road. Meanwhile, house is gone.
Well,
so it's like, how did you know what I mean? I think this is how they get
interesting.
served. This is how we give them service. This is how, because that's there's incentive for us. You take the incentive away, it's like, okay, well,
It's going to be interesting.
it's
We got to see how it plays out. We don't know.
it's definitely there's
no doubt
other
about that.
layers to it that I don't think
we
people
don't know
think
how it's gonna
through.
play out.
That
But Patrick, is there like sorry, just I'm asking all these questions because you know all about this and you read
know
all
some
about
things.
it. Is there a deadline? I heard there's a date, like this is valid for 7 years.
Oh
and then
yeah,
is there an
That was
expiration?
weird. I'm sure there's
Isn't
a reason.
that-
I'm sure there's a reason for this, right?
Interesting.
And it's one that I'm not aware of. I can't tell you
Okay.
I can't tell you the behind the scenes how the sausage is made on that one, but I believe it was like 4 or 5 years where it's
Yeah.
like that's how long this agreement is valid for, and it's like.
And then it could go all the way back, reverse back.
So what's the point? It's like,
Right, like-
I
Is
guess
this a trial? Is this like we're trying it out?
I guess the notion
weird.
is
Yeah,
that
that's weird. Yeah.
once things evolve over the 4 or 5 years, you won't be able to go back. I don't know. I think that is it was a weird thing that I saw in the settlement agreement. I was just like, huh.
Do you think it's a thing to combat inflation? A little tactic for the next 5 years, get housing prices drop?
I don't know.
I don't think it's gonna drop.
I don't think so.
You never know what I think that the main thing that you guys want to, you kind of got to, it's just going to get lazy agents.
I think
out
I'm just
the
going to
door.
go back to
You gotta
what
get
you
that-
said. Just keep going.
I know, just
Be
keep put your head down,
positive,
work.
and we'll figure out.
If you don't want to work, just get out the business. You know,
That's it.
Do the work.
I like the attitude.
Develop the script you need in order to,
I agree.
present someone with a written buyer agreement. And when you find something that works, then that's your new system.
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
I'm actually excited. I want to see what my competition does. I'm going to find a way to beat my competition.
Well, I think a lot of people aren't
100%.
going to be willing to
Anyway.
take my advice. They're going to be too intimidated by the notion of asking someone to sign something. It's really easy. You just set it up in DocuSign and boom, it's out, and they sign it. I mean, that's what we all do. When something comes in to my inbox and it goes, "You're supposed to sign this,"
Then you
I
got
just
the
go,
fine print, and you get stuck.
and now I've got to pay for basically another GD air conditioner. I'm so mad.
I'm joking.
I'm so mad.
I know I'm father you pissed off.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a boring story. I'll tell it to my wife. I already told her. She's like, here. Here, have some dessert.
She's like, bring some cannoli from New Paradise.
I will
We're gonna promote
I
New
will
Paradise.
be there.
Yeah,
I have no.
right here.
I have no problem promoting them for free. They're a local business and they're amazing.
But with that, I think we're gonna close it up.
Awesome, man.
I really enjoyed having you guys. This was
Yeah,
so
it
much
was
fun.
great.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me, man. I really appreciate
It was
you.
so much fun. Thanks
Sorry
for
I
coming,
was
man.
late.
Thank
No,
you guys
you're not.
for the
That's
opportunity.
fine.
Appreciate it.
Amazing. You guys were like great. Like, man. Everybody follow, besides following us, XR Realty, follow Cafecito Podcast,
Yeah, Cafecito Talks. Yep.
Cafecito Talks, and
The Home Buyers Hour. And if you do want to be
Yes.
informed about the NAR lawsuits and the settlement and all that stuff, follow me on TikTok at Loftus Law.
Instagram. I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean,
I like
Is there
the Insta
crossover
either.
on there? Do you-
people don't fight as much on Instagram. It's not as much fun.
No, but at TikTok, it's just like there's a lot of stuff popping every time I open it.
Yeah, okay.
I know. TikTok
Put,
shop.
put,
Go
put
buy
some more
this.
stuff on
Yeah,
Instagram.
this,
Put
you
some
know.
more stuff on Instagram.
Yeah, I love being fed information through a fire hose into my face. So that's why TikTok is good. On Instagram, I'm Loftus_law. And
Nice.
if you're really just a real loser, go follow me on LinkedIn.
Man, he's really getting bad. All right, guys. With that, episode 27 is over. Ciao.
Ciao.